I'm doing a lot of videos lately. I'm doing a lot of putting stuff up online because I have research that I've kind of concluded, but like had to put the brakes on. Like, there's a certain point that that you could stop, and so I figured out that point is now. And so I've been kind of trying to like really piece together like 20 solid years worth of like evidence from like all different sorts of areas, and some of them are like like sound very far fetched, and some of them go against truths that people hold dear to them and believe very much. If you've never seen a truth crumble into lies, or at least beliefs, then you're really not a mature stereographer yet. And that's what I am. I am a stereographer. My name is Alicia. I have National 3D Day coming up, and as I'm looking behind me, and I'm like, have I ever done the 3D, like the history of 3D video games? So I'm going to do that next, and I'm definitely going to have that. I think I'll be doing it with maybe the Parks Department, and if I don't do it with the Parks Department, I'll just do it in the park across the street from the Parks Department, and it'll be a lot of fun. A lot of people love it. These are retro video games from 1981 onwards, and that is a very big thing that I collected for a second. That was my first white paper. That was my first introduction to academia. So I'm very, I'd love to share it with people. And this is another thing that I'm going to share. And this is something that I fell absolutely backwards into, that I wasn't looking for. Um, I was merely I was merely trying to find a way to basically survive a format that is absolutely dear to me, the stereo realist format, the stereo slide format, which while photography is going through an absolute renaissance for like the past like 10 years, it seems like, even that, like, like like, I mean, they're making film. Who's making film again? Like, I mean, like, really, I mean, like, people are like like, people have businesses that they're re-spooling and like just rebranding old film stock that they like know are refrigerated or don't know that are refrigerated or freezered. And the one area that I notice very much that is really getting a resurgence, and I'm not going to say there's not resurgence in it. I have just recently seen a June 2024, I believe, article in Amateur Photographer magazine that was like literally on the stereo realist in 3D photography. I couldn't help but notice some friends of mine were in a logography blog post, I want to say, or article post, but I didn't realize it was from last year. So, and I have friends that have had sure, everybody very close to me in New York that is into 3D has had a show within the past, I want to say, 2 years, which is an enormous amount of stereo analog interest all of a sudden. And the one thing that I am not seeing, and I do not expect to see, except when this is adopted, is that there are many new creators, people that are picking up these analog cameras, people that are picking up any sort of um, um, really, there's a lot of people who have gotten into 3D image making, and I want to say 3D photography in particular, and I want to say that has been through London Stereoscopic, and I thank you very much for that. I absolutely would love for the people that I know here in New York City to be able to converse and really get to know a bit more of the history that they um, might be a little bit trepidatious about tiptoeing around and arriving at. It's something that I was able to learn firsthand, and it's something that I want everybody that I know that is a active shooter, that actually knows how to use a camera, that actually like loads film, that actually like will know how to meter, will know how to like operate a camera. uh, they are really missing out in the whole stereo club scene that I was privy to, and this has a lot to do with it. What I'm about to talk to. So, what I'm about to about is basically something that I have approached from two specifically like polar opposite places that I didn't realize that all roads lead to Kodak in this story, and boy, do all roads lead to Kodak. Oh my god, like I can't even begin to explain the like absolute like epicness of this story, and even mention something as casual as like a name brand, a household brand in the same sentence. It's absolutely ridiculous and phenomenal, regardless which way you approach it. And I approached it in two different ways at two different times for two different reasons. The first way that I approached it was basically I had um, I'm a stereographer and I have a format that I'm trying to survive. I have an enormous amount of cameras for a single person to try to like make relevant again to a new generation of stereo shooters that are not picking up these cameras. They might be going to a show and they might be introduced to the medium and the very, very impactful and absolutely unique experience it is. And it's unique for everybody. Some people don't have it and some people do. And it's really something that is always only going to be unique to you and you alone. And there's very few things in life that are like that anymore. There's a lot of things like, like we all have to like, the door tax. We all have to do. We all have very universal things that unite us all, and this is something that is absolutely personal and unique to you and you alone, and it's something that is very it has guided it has not guided it has dictated, unfortunately, but it's something that I investigate have been investigating for the past 25 years, almost 24, 25 years, and I am getting to the point where I really do need to put my theories out, and this is one of the things that I was trying to add to that, but it turned it into its own animal because that's what my research does usually. So this is the story of me trying to survive this camera to a new generation of shooters who perhaps are not even or just being introduced to like film for the first time, let alone a stereo camera. And when I talk about stereo cameras, I am talking about cameras that were made specifically in the like following World War II in the 50s. It is referred to in in basically it has been referred to through stereo clubs that have survived this history forward, and there are many layers to that. But basically, this is something that is a very specific, specialized camera, even within the stereo camera world. This is a stereo realist, and the history behind this camera is not the one that is published and publicized. If you look up the stereo realist camera in Wikipedia, in Camera Wiki, in any in institutions that you put your full faith in authorities, these are histories that all stem from one specific instance, basically, and it has kind of matured and grown since then. But these are histories that were manufactured. So I will say with 100% full confidence, even without concluding my research, even without connecting all the dots, just by common sense alone and by reading the story. Has nobody ever read the story of the history of the stereo realist? It's mind-boggling that this could be taken as fact and the truth. It is absolutely fabricated. Anything that you read about the David White Company and blah 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 and some like blah blah blah, and like like some guy comes in off the street and like he just has like I just love stereo cameras, and like the first one I made was like it's like the Three Bears. The first one was too hot, the second one was too cold, and the third one was just right. And like suddenly this camera becomes manufactured by some like hole in the wall, like not even a factory, not even a manufacturing plant, nothing that was actually like grinding lenses or like doing mathematical equations to like figure out like the probability of this and that and the other thing. It was something that was like more of an assembly plant that would just like do that and ship it off because it was close to the border of the like of one of the Great Lakes, whatever Great Lake is. Oh my god, like I'm sorry, but like I don't know my Milwaukee. My bad, my friends in Milwaukee and Wisconsin. I know you're freezing, I can tell you that much. And I know you work harder than anybody that I know. But it it somehow got the budget to hire Hollywood, the entirety of Hollywood, for 3 years while it was like in development and trying to be released. full page ads in every single photography magazine. Companies that perhaps it might have seen as a challenger might have taken up any retail page space for advertising or whatever it was, suddenly just like fell to the wayward side and never to be heard of again. So just even things like that, even things as basic as what goes into manufacturing a product, mass market manufacturing. You need logistics, you need a factory that's going to be delivering this type of product and that type of product for you to assemble it in your factory. You're going to need to have designers, engineers, you're going to need to have salespeople all over the country to go and do the legwork of selling this and putting this on the retail shelf and having a mom and pop store move some other product over for yours to be there because it's going to sell for them and you're going to be able to sell this mom and pop shop or this Woolworth or whatever retailer that you are trying to sell this product, because you're not selling directly to consumer, you're not a wholesaler, you're a retailer, and you're selling this wholesale to retailers, and the retailers have to be convinced that this is going to make them money and this is going to be able to generate the income that they invested in having you there, instead of replacing it with something that could 100% sell, like a book or a doll or anything else but your very weird, very new, even though it's advertised by Hollywood, it's advertised for a retail price of $160, which I think at the time in the 1947 when it was released, let's even give it that. Um, I think it was like $1,000 or $1,200. Like, I know that my favorite camera that I am shooting this right now on, and boy, oh my god, is it my favorite camera? You want to know how much this is my favorite camera? This is so my favorite camera that, like, this is the one caveat of this phone. So this is a red hydrogen one, right? I'll advertise the hell out of it. This is the best freaking thing ever. Like, you want to shoot 3D? Why aren't you doing it on this? My god. And the only thing that's really bad about it is, like, when it reaches like 75-ish%, the phone might just shut off and you don't know when it's going to turn back on. It just does it whenever it feels like it's full, and whenever you somehow like get around, or whenever it like kind of settles itself, then it might turn back on, maybe 2 weeks later, maybe 2 days later, who knows, right? So having your phone like shut off whenever it wants and then just like turn back on whenever it wants is the worst feature to have in a phone. And even this would sell better than this, like, I mean, and it does, because it's so worth it. I have like freaking four of them, and I don't hook them up or anything like that. They're just for shooting 3D. But so was this. This was just for shooting 3D. And this was a camera that did not sell. No matter what any amount of advertisements that were made for it, no matter how many people in Hollywood might have come onto the bandwagon, no matter if the President of the United States of America is seen smiling with it, really holding it in a way that absolutely no stereographer would hold a realist, that doesn't mean that this actually sold. This was a camera that was made in such anemic quantities that it would be an embarrassment to any country, any company, if they sold 250,000 in a year. But the Stereo Realist managed in 40 years, in 40 fucking years, to sell 250,000. And this is celebrated in stereo club culture. Why? Why are the rules that apply to real life, that would get any single person fired if they were a designer, if they were an engineer, if they were a salesperson, if they were anything at all, why did this get celebrated and touted as a victory, a triumph for the communicating, the communicability of three-dimensional space within visual communication? Why is this celebrated and not just really like regarded for what it is, which is a absolute fail? Imagine spending 3 years worth of budget on Hollywood, the entire Hollywood, on the President of the United States, and you only sell 250,000 cameras in 40 years. you're a failure. That it's the end of the story. You're a failure even before you get out the gate. You shouldn't be able to make it like 3 months without selling 250,000, let alone having that multiply exponentially and just like be that's what a boom really is. So when the history of the stereo realist is advertised, and and it's very much kind of everywhere now. I don't know how it snuck out of the confines of the like cloistered confines of what stereo clubs are, which is really just a space where they advertise stereo products, 3D products to themselves, and anybody who's making a 3D product like has to like be making like I have no idea. I wasn't allowed in. So, and I'm a printer and I am a very good researcher and I contribute a lot to my community. I made National 3D Day. I discovered a format and I named it after people in the stereo clubs that were absolutely integral to their survival and their basic like ability to market their history to you today. I was part of their come uppingness in recent years, because they had all dwindled and gone by the wayside because they have not been actively involved in anything relevant in the past 20, 30 years or something like that. I have no idea. But anyway, this is where I was approaching it for first. And my basic so this is the backstory that I have. This is something that I have going against me. And when people ask what is wrong with stereo communication, why did this fail, or why like why didn't 3D movies take off, or like what, it's because the stereo realist was advertised to the entire public for 3 years and delivered nothing, and delivered something that was unusable. It delivered a product that absolutely no one could use, even though there were stereo realist slides being made, and I will get into the reason why this is all tied together. But the average photographer, first of all, had to afford this camera, which is like literally it's like putting a down payment on a house back then. You're gonna give $160. You better be like like making sure that you're getting married and having babies and getting a white picket fence involved, because otherwise you're just walking away with a camera, and which is cool, but I mean like in the grand scheme of things, that's not how things work. So this is a extremely difficult camera to use. Every single person who even supports this camera, even even the man who owns the Realist trademark, will have like just like a little blurb, like a little just like, by the way, it is a bit difficult to use, but once you get over it, right? And nobody gets over it. You have to be like a full-fledged 3D nut to get over it, because you have to submit to this camera. I say you don't even operate it, you don't shoot it, you submit to it. And I realized I was facing a crux. I was facing like like this is the exact moment in time where I can either do something about this and make this a camera that other people can use, or I will see an entire line, like the whole entire 250,000 of them will be going to the recycling bin, or they'll be just like melted down, and like like there will be very few chances for this format, this tool, excuse me, this tool to ever help me make this format ever again. And this is what I'm trying to survive. This specific format, this specific stereo realist 5 perf stereo transparency slide that is actually like made, that we hand make as stereographers, and we cut out film strips and we mount them ourselves, and like this is a labor of love. And this is a format that we don't want to see die, because we understand the difference between format to format, and we understand the difference between the uh, all types of aspects of stereoscopic communication. And it's something that it takes a lot of time to learn and to basically eventually see. And I try to specify like myself to be in the business of variety, so people can be exposed to different varieties of formats, so they can have the ones that speak to them, instead of just like having to fall into line and only try to understand one type of format that perhaps they're not supposed to be attuned to, and they might be attuned to something else. And there are so many different types of stereoscopic communication. So, but this is the one that that got me, and this is the one that I, like when you make your vow, you make your vow, and so this is a problem that I'm having. I have a lot of people who are interested in stereophotography. There's a very my friend Eric has a very successful and recurring show at the center of the universe. Probably still Brooklyn Film Camera, and he has a stereo slideshow. But I don't know if that's translating into stereo photographers that are going to be inspired by it. And so these are the people that I was trying to reach out to. And I remember handing the camera over to a couple of young lads and lasses, and like, here's the camera, and they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, really. And so you go like this, and da 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 da, and they're like, no, thank you. And I'm like, wow. So like, this camera is so ill designed that I can't even hand it to a person that specifically came into the shop to get a old film camera, like, according to, like, their standards or mine, actually. And so I had to devise ways to make this camera more usable, and techniques, really. And this is the number one that I came up with, was turning the camera upside down. um, I was touting this as the worst designed camera in history, from my research and from what I've learned, and even just like within the past couple of days, just like rethinking things in different ways. This might be the most brilliant design move I have ever seen in any product ever. That suddenly, just, I mean, it's symmetrical. It doesn't matter if you're turning it upside down, you're still getting the same picture. I'm still going to be able to use my functions the same way. What this is really the absolute caveat of this camera. Its Achilles heel is the fact that these are rangefinders. And so and so I guess I'm approaching this from the stereo realist side first. I will put a pause in between. But so these are rangefinders, and what rangefinders are is basically a, if you know what trigonometry is, and like, I can literally like tell you what trigonometry is, and I can tell you what a rangefinder is, but I can't like make the two come together in my head for some reason. But so this is basically giving you 2 points of something that you could focus on in a distance, and by having information, like, knowing the like angle, like, the length of one side of the triangle and like the angle of the other, you can find out the length of the other side of the triangle, or the distance, or like whatever you need to find out. So that's what a rangefinder does. It gives you 2 points of triangulation, basically. And you already know 1 point, which is the baseline between the 2 points. So this baseline right here is pretty wide for a camera, but in the grand scheme of things, of trying to figure out how far away something is, or where you are in relation to something else, it might not be long enough. It might need to be a baseline this big. If I'm trying to find out how far away, this is from me, or something like that. Like, I'm just making an example right now, just with two things, and this is the baseline I have. This is a very small baseline. So I only have a certain amount of distance that I could play with, that this will be actually mathematically sound, and give me a result that is accurate. And then I would have to like do some other sort of math, probably, to figure out anything else beyond that. And I'm not doing that. So this is something that is very much just basic trigonometry, I guess. And thank goodness I past that far in math, because I remember one point I was like, what are you talking about? Like, you might as well be putting a dog down and like having it like read something on the computer in Greek, and like, like, it would probably get a better score than I did. But at least I could do this, right? So this is something that is very wide for a camera, and this baseline, it's even bigger than the lenses. Like, these lenses are naturally lining up to my eyes, and the stereo realist will always tout itself as something that is going to mimic natural vision, but it actually is what we call hyper, in stereographer terms, which is basically that something that is larger, that is bigger than life, that is going to be like, let's say if you were an animal this big, and your lenses were over here, your eyes were over here, this is really where you are starting from. And This gives you a greater distance that you can focus on, a greater amount of depth that you can really triangulate and get accurate. And so this was pretty much the maximum size that they can make on a camera without it being this big and without it being like some military thing that you would take around. And this is a very hard thing to hold. It's a very heavy camera. This is a camera that I want to say, like, I always make fun and say it's like 7 pounds, but I think it's actually like 3 pounds or like 2.7 pounds, which is really a lot. Like it's like holding like a gallon and a half of water. Sometimes it feels like, you know what I mean? So um holding a camera that heavy, and then this is what you need to focus, and there are focusing dials, so this is what you need to focus with, and you have to not block this rangefinder. And let me just take another one. I carry it under my jacket because this is my daily driver, and if I see somebody on the street that could use a lesson, I will absolutely take it out. It's actually hot in here, fuck this. So this is my student version. I highlighted where the rangefinders are, so somebody could see them and be aware of them, and like, actually like be like, mindful of them. I put pieces of tape, so like even if you aren't mindful, you have a tactile thing that you could feel with your fingers, and you'll know, oh, I'm blocking the rangefinder, right? These are very simple things that anybody can do. And I remember, I think Izumi, hello, boy, he's posting a lot of realist stuff, like just in preparation. He doesn't realize that me and him are on the same page, but that's going to be a nice surprise at the end, won't it? Um, love you. Love your research. Love everything that you're doing, by the way. Thank you very much. I'm even getting my references from your website, which is ridiculous that I even have to do that. Like that's amazing. Thank you. But these are like the points that I want people to, like, really be mindful of and notice. And especially this, because this is something that like you might not notice, and like you might just block with your fingers, and you'll never really notice until it's actually outlined and like, really kind of made like, into a danger, like, like yellow and white type of stripe. But if you turn the camera upside down, I suddenly am not blocking this rangefinder by holding it naturally. And this is the stance a stereographer takes. I'm going to say that this might be one of the biggest jokes. I really hope it is. I really hope this was a purposeful joke for stereographers to have to do this and be like, look, I make you go like that for the rest of your lives, right? That's an amazing joke with long staying power. But this, if I hold it upside down, it's actually not going to do anything. The midline of the camera is still exactly the same as it would be as if it was right side up. And I can do things like take a piece of Velcro and, like, the straps for the camera are going to hold it naturally like that. How would I make it so that it's upside down? Like so I could just, like, take a piece of Velcro and stick it on the camera, take another piece of Velcro and stick it between the strap, and like voila, the camera's going to be upside down. Like, you know what I mean? Like these are little tiny things that I'm just doing with like nothing, and suddenly this becomes a usable camera. Suddenly this becomes not the worst camera that I've ever used, but one of the most effective and efficient. It's heavy as hell, and it does take a bit of a learning curve if you aren't really shooting film and aren't really kind of like used to having to do a couple of controls. But that's going to be any camera that you're going to be doing. This is the hugest part right here. Turn your camera upside down. And this, by the way, goes to every single camera that is going to fall within this genre of cameras that I'm going to be talking about eventually. I still have to get into the Mercury, and I still have to get into universal camera, but I will come back to the stereo realist part of it. And that part of it is basically dominated by a couple of different things. It's dominated by, one, the tale and the legend of first of all, it's dominated by Hollywood and people just like kind of really advertising without buying into it, and it going nowhere, and it going into, like, the stereo boom that everybody talks about, which I will get into in 2 seconds in another video, but I'm going to do it still tonight. And this is something that uh, uh, I'm sorry, this applies to all the cameras that I'm just going to do spoiler alert. Kodak made the stereo realist. Oh my God, Kodak did it really? Yes. And I'm going to tell you how they did it. So I'm going to say that with full force. Number one, the stereo clubs were all created to perpetuate a specific lie at the time, or a specific story, or whatever they were told that needed to be done at the time. Sell the stereo realist. It's the best camera in Hollywood. La 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 la, and then they disappear, and then like suddenly it's Seton Rockwood, and like I just made this camera. I was just a guy on the street, and I walked in, and we made the most sellingest camera in the world. La 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 la, and then they're all unusable, and still there's stereo cameras being made by other companies and blah 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 blah. And even himself is he's making other versions of the same exact camera. You can always tell the ones that are made by Kodak by the fact that they are upside down, that the rangefinder is found on the bottom, that the viewfinder is found on the bottom. It doesn't matter if it's an Aloka, it doesn't matter if it's a Kindar, it doesn't matter if it's a Tower, it doesn't matter if it's anything by Sears or anything that was imported by Aloka. It doesn't matter if it's a stereo realist. It doesn't matter if it's Contora. It doesn't matter, which is just basically a fancy name for Kindar, by the way. I hope you know. And both of those were all created in the same exact factory at the same exact time. If you've never heard of manufacturing before, we usually do good, better, best, and like that's just like a basic thing. There's a lot of just basic manufacturing and basic putting a product out to market type of common sense that is really involved in the stereo realist story that a lot of people just like clean over and ignore, and it's just like I don't understand how. But either way, you could always tell one of these manufactured in-house at the time of stereo realist. All of them were manufactured at the same time. There was no Seton Rockwhite jumping from company to company. He just like was, like Vamoose, he was, told to leave. And all these cameras, you can't just turn on factory machines for like a day and just like manufacture 100 cameras and that's it. Like that's not the way it works. You have to fucking like have your factory running efficiently to produce enough amount of product to make it efficient for your factory to be running in the first place and to profit from it. So none of that makes sense. The fact that it might have been retailed and delivered to the retail customer at different times is an entirely different story. And if you want to buy into whatever you're going to be into, I can't really actually make any impact on that at all. But that's the way things are. Nobody sends a factory an order for 100 pieces and have a custom product come out. You need 10,000 pieces. Like you need 100,000 pieces. You need at least 250,000 pieces to make a run, and that's just a small run. So none of this story makes sense. Honestly, it doesn't hold water in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't hold water on any planet. And the fact that this camera was absolutely inoperable and suddenly becomes 100% operable, it almost eliminates like 90% of the problems that anybody could have with it. And it's still absolutely shootable. I can focus over here. In fact, I don't have to hold it like an idiot anymore, like that, like fucking asshole. I could just hold it like a regular camera. This whole thing where you're balancing a camera on your forehead, I've given myself black eyes with this camera. This camera is fucking dangerous if you hold it anywhere above your nose. Like there should be warning signs on it. Anybody who is doing that is actually like a hazard to your health. So holding the camera, focusing the camera, and I'll shoot this right now. I don't like like whatever. Okay, I'm focused right now, 100%. I'm gonna cock my shutter. It's absolutely. Oh, see, I'm just having muscle memory, but I'm just gonna go like that, and I'm gonna, boom. I just took a picture. Not literally. That's pretty fast for a realist shooter, and I'm pretty fast for a realist shooter in the first place. And I just shot my camera upside down, which is the exact opposite of the way that I'm trained to do it. And I still managed to like hit off a shot in like 2 seconds or like 10 seconds, however long it took me. So this is something that everybody really needs to know. This needs to be more popularized. This needs to go out instead of the history of the stereo realist. We need to start popularizing and propagating that this camera is absolutely operational and anybody could probably use it if they just hold it upside down. You won't be blocking your rangefinder. Then, therefore, you can focus the camera. You can focus the camera with your what is this, your index finger, the same way that you would do it on top over here. You can cock your shutter the same way that you do, oh, I'm always going like that, right? You can do it like that instead of going like that. As long as you have your film advanced, like, and that's like the pain in the ass part about this also. To advance the film, you have to push it in. It's like this whole thing, and it's because of the 5 per format that they had to fucking choose. You know, this is there's so much that goes into the story, but either way, so I have like my camera cocked, ready, like, you know, advanced, like ready to take a picture, like, you know, like let me even change my distance, like let me move farther away. Okay, am I focusing? Yep. Am I blocking anything? Nope. And I'm gonna go 1, 2, and I'm gonna fire with my right hand because I'm right-handed. And one of the things about the stereo realist is that a lot of people accused Seton Rockwhite, thinking that he was the designer of it, to being left-handed. And even I was like, of course he's left-handed. It's a left-handed camera. Like, you know, like I'm shooting it with my thumb on my right hand. It's much easier. And it's because the designer of this camera was left-handed, perhaps. And there's a back and forth about that also, but I'm pretty 100% sure about things like that. And so this is a camera. This is a camera that has dictated not only a format, let's say, and by the way, the format is actually not its format. It's not a realist format. It was actually a freaking fucking international standard, and it was one of the first international standards ever passed, even before the ISO was created. There was these photography standards, a handful of them, and these are all very, very important, very, very relevant to each and every part of the story. This is just one block of it. Just one block of it is that if you turn your camera upside down, you're going to be able to use it. And I don't think I've ever seen a single article, anyone advertising, oh, turn your camera upside down. I just met somebody today online, and I'm like, how do you know that? I've seen people do it accidentally, and not holding it right, and like, you know, I mean, like, what is this, like, surrender for, like, you know, like, I don't even know. But it's really funny if it's a joke. That would be an amazing joke to make people do that for like the next 100 years. And it's like, haha, like, but all of the cameras that came from the Kodak experimental department, which was basically the stereo realist headquarters in Milwaukee for quite a period of time. I want to say between 19 like whatever the story of Seton Rockwhite is, like whenever he went to like go do his thing and like, you know, like, oh, I have a camera and like let's make it, and like everybody made it. During that period of time, this is the period of time that the Kodak experimental department was experimenting with rangefinders at that location. And so everything that came out during that time, whether it was designed like this on purpose to make the consumer not be able to use it and to fail specifically for that reason, and there's all sorts of business rich people math that like make that something profitable for them. You know, I don't do that. I do the poor people math where you like, you know, overdraw like 2 accounts and you're like able to like fly to like wherever and like get a hotel just for like, you know, $1 in one account and like, you know, like 3 in your business account, and like just pay the $35 overdraft fee and you're good, right? So there's all different types of math you could do. But this one is specifically one that is a signature, I want to say, of this Kodak program. I don't know if that is 100%, but I am probably like 98% positive that that's it. Even the ones that are coming in from Germany, even the imports that we have from Iloka, which we have been importing the whole entire time, and we've been using the lenses for it. And like, I mean, like, come on, like, really, I mean, it's Iloka. Like, they were making stereo cameras before we were. They had this 7 per format the entire time, and we had and then they had to change to the 5 per format to fit our standard that was suddenly a international standard that everybody had to abide by. And so even they had their viewfinder. I don't even believe they had a rangefinder on it because it was just, Iloka made gorgeous stuff. Oh. And so even they had to really kind of flip the script, if you will. And this is a signature of this specific time period of this specific assignment, I want to say, and I will say it was an assignment. And I'm going to take a break right now because this is a lot to take in. But do realize that the stereo realist camera, the entire history that you know of it, from Hollywood and Hollywood touting it, but who in Hollywood was actually taking pictures? Are you taking pictures of people in Hollywood? Is there a specific stereographer who's doing that? Of course. To say that the entire Hollywood was like, like just gaga about it is a bit of a overstatement, is a bit of a lie. And this is something that was really abandoned by everyone. If you did end up with one of these cameras, and I come from a camera family, and I come from my uncle had a camera shop. My father was one of the best technicians in New York for many, many years. Worked in one of the best camera shops in New York, and for me to have discovered this after his death, because there's only one roll ever shot, and if you come from a camera family and there's only one roll of film shot on a camera and they never pick it up again, there's a reason. So there's a lot of secondhand acquirements of these. A lot of these weren't sold at retail at all. I would love to see sales figures. That's one of the things that I'm actually researching very heavily right now is sales figures and some people's names that I still have to get that I don't want to share yet. But these were things that were basically that would be relevant to describing whether something was successful or not successful, at least in monetary, or even in just sales units, or even just making it to a consumer's hand, or even just making it to a person who appreciated the camera and liked shooting it and enjoyed shooting it and didn't have a problem because of this. And for it to be just flipped around like that, it's just like a that's a slap in the face, I think, to an entire culture. Like, why didn't anybody do this before? Why did I have to be told to shoot it the way that somebody told me to shoot it, instead of doing it the way that's comfortable for me and the way that makes sense? And so this is where like it gets dangerous, where the past informs the present and the future of it. And now I'm stuck with 250,000, let's say, even if they survived, stereo realist cameras that are going to be endangered, and that are definitely going to be I've never had hope for this once, and I always knew that it was going to go extinct with me, and it's good that I always thought that, because I can see it happening right now. But the fact is, like, this wasn't survived down. This wasn't survived to me. I picked this up myself. This was something that could have been, if somebody would have taken the time and the effort just to like look at it critically, instead of being told by a leader in a cult or something like that what to think themselves. And that is really what is a very big danger in stereo cultures, I want to say. And I'm going to end with this. Sorry about this like run on rant, but I'm going to end with this, because this is nobody's talking about any of this type of thing, and they're definitely not talking about it if they're like reaping the benefits of somebody celebrity and everything like that. But the stereo realist has only ever been advertised by celebrities. It's only ever been advertised as being able to like really kind of like embody them, and like any celebrity advertising would be doing. And it's getting a lot more real lately, hasn't it? Really? Yeah, right. Wouldn't you want? I wish I was on that train too. I wish I could have been like that also, but apparently they got my number as soon as they saw me. She can print, she can research, she understands what she's talking about. I would hire me for consulting, but I mean, if you didn't, then like that's probably an ego problem. But unfortunately, there are there are unfortunate powers that be that really do dictate what stereoscopic communication is to the mass market consumer. And if they are uninformed or ill-advised from the get-go, they'll continue to be like if you reap what you sow, if you keep on reaping, if you keep on sowing ignorance, you will keep on reaping ignorance. And unfortunately, after years and years, and especially when you're a culture that's specifically designed to advertise a product, and that's what stereo club culture actually is. The first club was the Hollywood Club, which was basically a spin-off of the Hollywood advertisements that you see all over the place for Stereo Realist. That was like, oh, this hoopla, the like, everybody was like enjoying it and blah blah blah. It's like, no, no, nobody wasn't. They even had to make a specific club where people probably hated going, and like probably like, like it was more like work, like what job are you doing, the stereo club job today? Ha 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 ha. Good luck like trying to figure that shit out, right? And so this all adds up, especially after like that's abandoned, and the residual is actually people who have picked up this camera and have had these values instilled in them and have survived them in some sort of way, shape, and form until today. And this is a lot of the problem, I think, with stereo communication being taken seriously, not being a novelty, being relevant in anybody's life, because nobody's going to be able to communicate it to you in a way that you can understand and take the time to make sure that you know that you as an individual are the ultimate judge of what is 3D and what is not 3D. It doesn't matter what I say, it matters what you see and what you can understand. And I hope if there's one thing I could say at closing, that stereoscopic communication is one of the most profound and personal experiences. And no matter what type of experience it is, whether you have no experience at all or you have a profound one that changes your life forever, they are both still relevant, and they are both still equal in value to what we know about this particular aspect of visual communication. And it's actually not visual communication, it's just using the visual pathway, but I'm not going to get into that right now. And that's it. And I hope that this 45-minute triad of just me going blah 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 actually made some sort of sense, and that you might have walked away with a better way to shoot your camera and a better way to enjoy it, and to be able to survive this format that is really one of the most, it's also one of the most enduring. It's something that will outlast a lot of other types of formats, especially with digital, just digital communication in general. You will need a format that is going to be able to be read or played back by something, on something that is going to be able to either visually or audioly, like whatever way that your like sensory is it, whatever way that it's made for your sensory perception to pick up on. And this one is basically using a format that is at least as long as I'm still using old stock, I suppose, maybe going to be more enduring than any other format that I can even think of. And it's something that I don't need to do any process to load up. I just need to hold it to my eyes to look at it after I take it, after I make it. And the process of doing that is in itself a labor, and it's a skill, and it's something that will be lost to time. And this is one of the most permanent records that you could have in three-dimensional communication. And I hope people will start carrying around this monster, and you feel hardcore with it, dude. Like, nobody's more hardcore than a stereo realist shooter. That's a fact. And I will talk to you guys later very soon, though. Bye.